as we got the loan secured and finance secured, a couple of weeks later, the world goes into financial meltdown.
The markets haven't been this volatile in almost 80 years.
$25 billion in bailout monies.
We are in a recession.
Reality, I think people want to make the change, but then aren't aware of potentially that sacrifice that's required in terms of plateauing, stagnation, even sometimes going backwards if you need to.
Whenever I invest in myself in terms of coaching and mentoring, it's never a waste. Even if you don't get the results, you grow as a person along the way. Because whenever you invest in yourself, you actually do the work. So I'm a qualified chartered accountant, but I'm going to admit here on the podcast. Hi there, so in today's episode, it's something different. I am actually going to be taking the other side of the interviewee side of the equation. I have my star student, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 who will be interviewing me on my story and my journey and sharing with you whatever I can in terms of the learnings that I've had, the experiences I've had in running my firm since 2008 to getting it to practically run without me now. So sit back, enjoy the show, and I'd love to hear your feedback afterwards.
Well, for this podcast episode, I'm joined by Reza Huda of 𝐲𝐢𝐭𝐡 Accountants and also of the Profitable Accountant and Profitable Accountants podcast as well. And I have the pleasure of asking you some questions. So I know you like to run some AMAs within your group. I guess this is a one-to-one AMA that's eventually going to become one-to-many, right? So
absolutely.
Why don't we start at the beginning? So I know you were in the Big Four as well, but let's go from before that. What got you to go to the Big Four to start with?
Okay, well, let's roll back the years, shall we? So I don't know, it depends on how far back we want to go, but I always, growing up, I guess I was always into buying and selling things from a young age. So you could say that I was quite entrepreneurial. I remember at the age of 10, 11, buying Hubba Bubbas from the local newsagent and then selling them to friends at school. I had something going, always something going on. I remember getting into eBay around 1995, 96 when it first came out, and back in the day when no one knew the value of mobile phones, I used to buy mobile phones from one website and stick them on eBay and make double the money because no one really knew their value. I kind of carried that on into university, kind of had a kind of the wheelie dealer I was known as, buying mobile phones and laptops and that sort of thing. I guess I was also, accounting was never something that was on my mind, but I was quite analytical. I like the math side of things. So naturally, I also enjoyed business. So at university, I did international business and French. I found I was quite good at French. So hence, I chose business with something else just to be a bit different. And as part of the course, you got to spend a year in France. So I thought, I like the sound of that. So hence, I did that degree. And my third year, I went to France. I chose Marseille, which is down on the south coast. So I spent a year there. Picked up the language, and when I came back, so in final year, applying for jobs, I promised them to yourself. I applied for anything and everything that I thought I could get into. So
things that sounded cool as well as
absolutely, yeah. So it was a mixture of management programs of companies like Renault, Peugeot, Kimberly-Clark, all the usual ones that back in the day used to have in a big book, didn't you? We didn't have the showing our age there, but yeah, there was no kind of website you could go onto. It was all.
I think Milk Ground was around.
Was it Milk Ground? Yeah, but it was a book or something. Anyway, there was all these firms and companies that you could apply to. So I applied to a few accountancy firms, a few general business programs, and I guess I was very focused in the beginning of final year to get a job because I knew how hard it would be, and I knew that I hadn't really put in that much effort in my degree, so I wasn't going to get a first-class degree. So I thought, right, I need to kind of quickly get on board and get a job offer, because if I leave it till the last minute, then it may be too late. Whilst everyone was busy swatting away. So I think. What
did you get in the end?
I got a 2-1, just about.
You've been all right then. You could have waited.
Just about. So anyway, all the job offers. I got of all the interviews and things that I did, I got 2 job offers. Got a job offer from Renault and I got a job offer from PwC. So Renault would have allowed me to continue with my language skills, French that I'd learned, go and spend some time working in France, be to and fro, and kind of go up the corporate ladder in a multinational company. Or PwC would have been going down the accounting route and get a qualification. Long story short, I kind of chose PwC purely because I was in that study mode. So I thought, okay, well, 3 years, doing a bit more studies, get a qualification under my belt, and that will then allow me to then, other doors might open. I'm not really sure about the accounting thing, but, I'm still in study mode, so why not do another 3 years? So I chose PwC and started off with them. Thankfully, not in audit, but in tax. And I applied for tax, not because not through thinking that it would be, a lot less work or less hours, but purely because it sounded boring. And I thought, well, tax sounds boring to everybody, and therefore not many people are going to apply for it. Whereas everyone is applying for audit because they make it sound very sexy.
Exactly.
Business advisory.
Corporate finance, even more people apply for it, don't they?
So everyone else is applying for audit. I thought, let me apply for tax. That sounds boring. And they had 8 places, and thankfully I got an offer and I got a place into tax. And yeah, we're very thankful that I did, because then we actually started working. We were doing the usual 9 to 5, whereas my friends in audit were doing 16, 17 hours a day. And although a novelty at first, and you get to claim expenses and all that kind of thing, it pretty much it gets a bit of a chore after a while.
Yeah.
So I trained in tax, and thankfully it wasn't dealing with big corporates. It was in the entrepreneurial and private client division of PwC. So working with quite a few owner-managed businesses, which was great. It was going to be a good head start and a bit more practical. After I did my ACA qualification, I did the CTA as well. And in that time frame, so I was at PwC for about 5.5 years. And it was always a case of thinking about what I'm going to do afterwards. It was always going to be a stopgap. I'm going to come in here, get the qualification, and then go away and set up a business in something. I never thought it would be an accounting firm. So I remember there was a friend of mine called Imran that we used to get together at lunchtime over a coffee in the atrium and just talk about business ideas. What could we do?
Yeah.
And we were quite close to setting up a cafe. So I was in Birmingham at the time.
Right.
And shisha was the craze. So I thought, right, okay, we will need to set up a shisha cafe. And so then looking at venues and stuff like that. And just as we were starting to get serious around 2007, they brought in the tobacco ban.
Right.
So you couldn't have tobacco inside. So that put paid to that idea, thankfully so, because it was a crazy idea. I'm glad I never went into it. So I kind of just stayed in PwC, still thinking about what can I do business wise, because most people, they go to PwC, they do their 3 years, 4 years, and they leave or go to a different department, go into industry, or go do something a bit more interesting. So I was thinking that harebrained idea never came to me. And then one weekend, as I am visiting my in-laws, so my in-laws lived down on the south coast. So I'm in Birmingham, they lived in between Southampton and Portsmouth in Fareham. So, married at the time, we were just expecting our first child, early 2008 or late 2007. And during a conversation with my father-in-law, he tells me that he's thinking of selling his practice. So he had run a successful small accounting firm since 1982. He'd then gone on to other ventures and care homes and stuff. And he got to that point where he was looking to sell out. He kind of had enough, but he wanted to secure, he had about 2 or 3 team members that he wanted to secure. So he was just kind of telling me that. He said he's had conversations with local firms in the area to potentially acquire. And that got us talking about, what if I bought into the practice? And I had a conversation with my friend at PwC to say, look, let's do this together. Look, we haven't actually come up with an idea ourselves. Why don't we buy an accountancy firm? We've got a bit of experience in terms of how it works, and let's kind of transform this practice and see where we can take it. Yeah, it's not quite, the sexy business that we had in mind, but, it's still a business. So we agreed terms, and my friend was living in, I think he lived near Stoke-on-Trent at the time, and he was going to kind of live down south in the week. We were going to move our lives down, and he said he would kind of stay there during the week and then go back up to his family on the weekends because he wasn't quite ready to move. So things went pretty fast. We agreed terms, and then I handed my notice in, and then last minute he backed out.
Last minute. Didn't even sign the dotted line.
No. So just before signing contracts, he backs out and said, I can't do this. I need to be near my family. So he backed out, and then it was up to me to then try and find the finance to secure the rest of the the practice that we had agreed. So I managed to kind of get finance at that time, and this was early 2008. So thankfully, it was all done. Literally, as we got the loan secured and finance secured, a couple of weeks later, the world goes into financial meltdown. There was the crisis of 2008, credit crunch, all that kind of stuff. Banks stopped lending, but everything was approved in principle, and we made the move down south, got into the practice, and that was the start of the journey. So it was very traditional practice. 2 or 3 team members, they'd been there a long time. Very, as you'd expect, this is 2008, so all paper-based.
Yeah.
I remember my father-in-law he'd never touched a computer. So what he would do is, even emails, so he didn't even do emails. To get an email, he would kind of write down on a piece of paper, give it to his secretary, she would type it up, and then send off the email. All his emails we printed off, given to him. He'd write the response or dictate the response over the phone, old school, to get that response out. So it was that kind of practice.
So you were thinking straight away cost savings right there.
Absolutely. So initially it was all about, right, okay, what are the quick wins here? You know, I've learned some things from PwC, like they had an electronic filing system that PwC had recently implemented. So I thought, that's a great place to start. I could start off with that, and I can start to make the firm paperless initially. So they were my first things that I did. Managed to, I think eventually managed to get fully paperless by 2011-ish. And I thought that was quite late, but it's surprising how I still come across accountants now and they're still paper-based.
Yeah, I think you still will find a lot out there still paper-based.
2011, you're 2024 and you're still using paper? Like, come on. So yeah, quick wins. But in terms of growing the business, I didn't have a clue. Right. Yeah. So I was completely winging it. No idea. I tried everything in terms of how to grow the business, and from telemarketing to paid ads, to going to networking events, to anything and everything, cold email shots, cold letters. I'd drive past a business, see their name, search them up, write them a big letter to try and get appointments. And so that was the first few years of my journey.
Interesting. So I suppose what you're saying is entirely up to that point you were as entrepreneurial as a young person could be, and then you went into accounting with the mindset of actually owning your own practice, with the mindset of turning it into a business, as opposed to going in there wanting to do accounts and everything, right? Because you hadn't done that before. So was your father-in-law already out of it from that point in terms of doing day-to-day work? You said he had other ventures going on. So was it a practice that was operating without the owner already?
Although he didn't do much of the technical work, he still had all the client relationships. Right. So he would do all the client meetings, albeit the work would get done by the staff that were there. So when I came in, I mean, thankfully, it's great that, it was someone that I could trust, and he trusted me. So, in my favor, he stayed on for, a year or so to be able to hand over the goodwill of the client relationship. So introducing me to the clients, rather than kind of buying a cold practice where the owner's just gone and has no really interest in passing it down. To be fair, that kind of worked in my favor, and I was, very grateful to him to do that, to hang around and to introduce me to clients and, say that, been at PwC, etc., so I can look after them very well. So he kind of did that. I was in 2 minds at the time in terms of, a bit like yourself, I'd never done an honest day's accounting in my life. So I'm a qualified chartered accountant, but I'm going to admit here on the podcast that I have never prepared a set of accounts in my life.
Not even after buying the practice?
Not even after buying the practice. I've never prepared a tax return in my life. Heresy, but I couldn't say that. I couldn't say that when I came in. So, I was in a bit of a dilemma to say, right, okay, well, do I come in and start to, take on some of this technical work, start on to do some of this compliance work, but then I'd be completely shown up because I wouldn't have a clue how to do it. Yeah. So I kind of managed to somehow steer the ship in terms of letting the team still continue to take care of it, and only focus on making the improvements on the business side and systems and that sort of thing, and marketing where I could. To not show myself up that I didn't have a clue how to prepare set of accounts.
So I suppose that's something that people listening might be interested in, is if they at the moment perhaps have got people that do the work, but still the clients expect to speak to them, or they still have those relationships. How would you suggest they go about getting out of that part? Because sometimes getting someone else to do the work is okay, and you can give them an instruction to just prepare these set of accounts, but getting people to own the whole relationship sometimes can be a bit harder to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So that took me quite a few years to figure out, because I would still, okay, I didn't know how to prepare a set of accounts, but I could read a set of accounts. I could obviously interpret the accounts with the clients. I would do all the client meetings. So my father-in-law kind of passed over those client relationships to me. So the team would still prepare the work, but I'd have to have those year-end meetings. I'd have the emails coming to me asking about, tax questions or accounts questions or growth questions. So the key team were very much insular, very much part of the factory doing the production work, and I would have the relationship with the client. So I was still kind of very much involved in technical work. And it wasn't until many years later that I kind of realized and started to pass more onto the team, because otherwise I am my forte was really kind of growing, and I was more interested in the sales and marketing side of things. Yes, I quite enjoyed the tax advisory side, because that was the angle that I brought into the practice, and that was the value that I could add. But it took me a lot of years to realize that actually clients don't have to see me, and clients just want somebody that understands their business, that can answer their questions, that can give them in layman's terms what they need to pay, when they need to pay it by. And it doesn't have to be me, but it was, I guess it's that ego thing that you think as a business owner that clients want to see you, and that you have to reply to their emails. But in actual fact, that's not true. That all they want is somebody who can quickly respond to them, that can guide them with what they need to, and get their questions answered. And it wasn't many years later that I realized this, that I then started to kind of transition away from working in the business to more working on the business.
And did you find that your team were happy to do that? Because I know you guys use the 6 working genius model from Patrick Lencioni. So when did you bring that in? Did you use that as part of your tool to work out who would be good to put in front of clients? Did it come afterwards, or did people have that with them? Because I suppose, the accounting stereotype is you're kind of socially awkward, which I don't think, you certainly don't come across as that, but that's kind of what it is. And were your team happy to take that on? Did you have to coach them to do it? Or were there other skills they had to get? And when did you bring in the 6 working genius to identify where you could put people to get the best out of them?
Yeah, so that was a long time afterwards. So maybe backtrack a little bit. So we've gone from buying in the practice at 2008. It took me a few years to even realize that I didn't know what I was doing. So I was kind of, just like a little happy little bunny, kind of driving around the streets of Southampton, talking to anyone I knew, and, winning work, but undercutting to be able to do so, and getting excited, and then realizing that actually a couple of years later, another accountant comes along, undercuts me, and the client leaves. So I learned a lot in those early years. And it wasn't until 2014 that I came across this whole world of there's a better way of doing things. This whole discovery that I came across a webinar from a chap called Mark Wickersham, who was talking about pricing. We were still doing kind of timesheets and hourly billing and that kind of thing, and that kind of blew my mind in terms of value pricing and not having to do timesheets, and clients wanting a result, outcome, solution, peace of mind, access to you. And that started my journey of transformation. And similar to yourself, I started with making changes on pricing that helped bring in profitability. And it's that profitability that allows you to do other things in terms of bringing other people on board, to be able to take away more of the technical work and give other client managers capacity to be able to hand more stuff down to juniors, so they do have then the time to spend with clients and that sort of thing. So 2014, I started my journey of transformation, worked on the pricing stuff first, and then went down the niching route in 2016 or so. And it wasn't until I guess 2018, 2019, where practice is doing well, it's profitable, and I start to then look at teaching other accountants that I think, okay, well, now I need to, make more of a concerted effort to completely get out of the practice. And it was then that I started, and I'm embarrassed to say this, and I'm telling this now to anyone younger than me. I mean, I was a ripe old age of 37 years old before I picked up a business book, which is crazy old, right? And I tell my son now, I buy him all the books and all the stuff. I say, look, you need to read from now, because this is what's going to help you. And the first book I read was was Drive by Dan Pink. I remember.
Not Rich Dad Poor Dad. I thought that's the one that everyone read first.
I still haven't read that book. I've been to my.
You still haven't read it?
No, I still haven't read it. I've got the gist of it, like you said. And I read the first, podcast on it. And but yeah, Drive by Dan Pink was the first one. I remember I was in Tenerife on holiday, and I read that book, and that blew my mind. I thought, why have I not been picking up these things before? And then literally I played catch up and read about 300 business books in the next couple of years after that.
Yeah.
But that kind of opened my mind to what really drives employee motivation and behavior, and realizing that it's not money, and the three concepts that he brings about of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I thought, okay, well, this is the way, and that kind of started my journey of then reading things like Work Sucks by Jodie Thompson and Kylie Resler. So we got rid of the timesheets, we got rid of the working hours, gave my team that full autonomy, but with accountability to say, yeah, you've got this freedom now that I don't care when, where, and how you work, as long as the work gets done, and then clearly defining what that work is. So kind of giving them with one hand, giving that full freedom, but there's still accountability. So the accountability is, the payoff here is you get this freedom, but the accountability is that you generate results. Results are, in my mind, that you handle the client relationship from A to Z.
Yep.
And I don't care when, where, and how you do it, as long as it gets done. So that was kind of the starting point where I started to make kind of these whole scale changes. We had to get rid of a couple of team members that weren't a good fit, because this was now, opening up. I had a bit of resistance from client managers who've been there for years and say, we've had to kind of do the whole 9 to 5, come into the office all these years. Why does everyone else get these perks when, we've been working like this for so many long? So you have to deal with that issue. Yeah. But, change management is always something that you're going to have to deal with in a business, particularly people who've been around for a while. But that was a starting point, that give them autonomy, but with accountability. And then I came up with that ladder of responsibility that, look, you are accountable first and foremost to clients. As long as you deal with everything that a client needs and wants, and you're around for them, and you answer their questions, and you're at the end of a phone, and you reply to their emails, and you meet with them where they need to, then I'm happy. Secondly, you're accountable to your colleagues. So if whoever that needs your support, you are there and you help each other to be able to cover phones and cover the office, so you guys can work when or how you want. So they started to come up with their own rotors and whatnot to be able to still give the service that we needed to during working hours to clients from normal business hours, but making sure that everyone's supporting each other. And last of all, you're accountable to me. And I know if clients are happy and colleagues are happy, then ultimately I'll be happy. Yeah,
absolutely. That makes total sense, because I suppose that also eliminates those people that are coming in just to make you happy and play those games within the team, right? Because actually you're last on the list that needs to be made happy. So you said that you took over the firm in 2008.
Yep.
You started working with Mark in 2014, Mark 𝐤𝐭𝐞, and then it was 2019 you had this epiphany at 37 years old about other things as well. And by the way, I think I was probably the same age when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad as well, so that was where I started, as cliche as it is. So actually, that's 11 years from taking over the practice, and still 5 years from actually starting to become aware of this other way of doing stuff when you started working with Mark. And is that a message you think is important to get out? Because a lot of people come to it late, and let's face it, 37 years old is pretty late. The same for me as well. And I think sometimes people think they should have their everything figured out earlier than that, and actually at this point it's too late, just crack on as it is. Or they start and they think, why am I not further ahead than where I am already? So I think is that something you think that's important for people to realise, that actually starting to make that change can take time? And what were the things that took you that long to realise it? Was it you yourself, or was it something that was in the practice that was stopping you from doing it? Yeah,
that's a good question. I guess, back in 2014, there wasn't the help, the support, the guidance that there is now. So, I'm sharing stuff from my journey. We've got the internet now, we've got LinkedIn, we've got YouTube, we've got avenues that we can go and learn from others that are, a few steps ahead in the journey. That simply wasn't around back in the day when I was starting my journey. Obviously, a lot more rife and apparent now, more than ever. And so, just reiterating that the only reason that I was able to do that was because I learned from someone else. That's it. Everything that I have done has been as a result of investing in myself to be able to become a better business owner, and learning from the mistakes of others to get that shortcut. either through books, through getting a mentor, through getting a coach, through, going through courses, and then applying what I'm learning to get those results. So initially, 2014, my journey started. 2016, I started to get some pricing results. 2018 was when I got that big 6-figure fee. I think it was 2018 really when so 2017, I read Drive by Dan Pink, and it was around that time that I started to make changes, and I implemented that environment where, results only type work environment around 2018, pre-pandemic, which was quite alien at the time. Not many firms were doing it. And then post-pandemic, people realized that actually work can get done without people having their bums on seats. And then that's become a lot more easy to understand now. So so on that journey, so that was my focus, because initially, when you're running a practice, yes, you need to bring in clients, you need to bring in money, you then need to bring in people, and then once you've got people, you need those processes in place, and then you slowly start to extract. So you can't, on day one, you're not going to extract yourself because you're the only one in there. So you've actually got to be there to get the work, do the work, but at least now having an overview of what is possible. So not getting into that trap of thinking that as an accountant, you've got to trade time for money. There is a better way. And it is possible for you to be an entrepreneurial accountant, to be able to build an accounting firm that gives you that time, money, and freedom that you want. Because ultimately, that's what we get into business for. We get into business because we want that autonomy. We want that control over our time to be able to, work when, where, and how we want, because we want to do what we want to do and spend time with the family, earn the income that we want to give us a lifestyle that we want. That doesn't mean that don't spend any time in the practice, but you want to be able to have that control. Whereas, unfortunately, most accountants get into that trap of trading time for money, and therefore they're actually in a glorified job. They're working more hours than they did when they were working in an employed capacity, which kind of defeats the purpose. So hopefully through sharing our journeys and how we got to where we are, that other people can realize and have that motivation that it is possible. And so the advice is, start as early as you can to invest in yourself, to go and learn of how you can develop a business to give you the life that you want. Because ultimately the business is just a vehicle to give you the life that you want.
You had that watershed moment where you said to the team after reading Drive that this is what I expect from you guys. For me, a couple of years ago, I remember putting up a organizational chart with responsibilities and color coded, and I had nothing that related to compliance next to my name. There was no color coding there at all, which, although I didn't say it out loud, let everybody know, stop giving me VAT returns to review. So do you think that might be the thing? Like, they talk about leadership, most of it is communicating. You said before about the chief reminding officer. Do you think that's sometimes a problem with accountants? They're not willing to say to their team, this is my role now, this is your role. Or is it actually not even willing to say? Because I know, like, job descriptions, we never had job descriptions in our business for years. Is that the problem? How can they address that thing? Because if the thing is about them getting stuck in there and spending too much time as the business owner on doing things, is it a communication issue? Is it something more structured like a group chart or job descriptions or something else?
Yeah, I think it probably initially it boils down to, we're all control freaks, right? As the owners of the business, we're control freaks.
Try to act laid back, but we're not.
And so that also means that when we have clients, we want to make sure that, on the one hand, we're control freaks, but we also are very risk averse and we're fearful. So on the one hand, we're fearful that if we transfer the client relationships to our team members and let them handle the client A to Z, that they're going to leave and run away with our clients. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that no one can do it as well as I can. And therefore only I can do, the reviews, only I can do the client meetings. But we know that's not true, that there are lots of well-able, qualified accountants out there that can do jobs as well as us. And the important thing is that it's not just about, delegation is not, there's a difference with delegation and abdication. Abdication is, okay, go away and do it and expecting them to do it the way you would do it. Or delegation is, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is what I expect, and this is my process of how to do it, and this is the checklist that I will use to review your work. So there is a process of delegation that you can put in place to get things done as well as you would do it, if not better. And that is a constant process of evolution, and that's how businesses do it. It's not, you have many businesses that have scaled where it's not the owners doing all the work. So clearly it is possible to have a team of people doing the work that you are doing at the moment. So firstly, it's possible. Secondly, the fear of team members running away, and that kind of, yes, it does happen. It happens a lot less than we think it will happen in reality. I mean, to give you my practice, my practice now with the team. So it was a transition of initially give the team responsibility over all client work and client meetings, but I was still doing all the sales. So I was still having meetings with all new clients, prospects coming in, and I was doing all the pricing conversations. So the first thing I did was move over client meetings, but then I was still the bottleneck when it comes to sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But now I've developed systems that have replaced me as the bottleneck, meaning that we are getting clients in now that have never even met me, that have never even spoken to me. I don't have a relationship with them. So yes, there is a potential risk that my team members who have those client relationships could leave and run away with those clients. But it's all, business is all about risk management. And for me, the way I counteract that is, how can I create a culture which gives my team all the benefits of having their own business in a way, but without the downside, without the risk, without having
the deep pockets themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Without all the headache that goes with actually running your business, but all the benefits. So the benefits being, the ability to work when, where, how you want, to be able to manage the demands of your life, your family around the demands of your work, and also the satisfaction that, you have this relationship with a client and you can get your motivation and your ability to do a good job and thanks from the client, which inevitably will motivate you to do good work. So far so good. I haven't had anybody leave to this date. But I found that if you're able to create that culture which attracts the best talent, retains your high performers, maximizes everyone's potential by knowing how to drive that employee motivation, then ultimately that's a win-win for both of you and your team members. And then my role has now moved from actually not having any client responsibilities, but my responsibility is kind of looking after the team in a way. So I've gone from actually being client facing to being more of a support and coach for my team. So they don't come to me with any technical questions, but what I will do, like yesterday, I was on a call with one of my team members going through, helping him with reviewing his sales calls. So we record sales calls through Fathom AI, and just helping him with, because I've done a lot of work in terms of building my own skills in terms of selling and how to run the sales conversation. And so this is an area which I play now, is that coach to my team members as opposed to having any client facing responsibilities.
Yeah that makes a lot of sense, what you said there about building a place where they want to be, a place where they want to work. I think it's Richard Branson normally gets attributed with, isn't it? Make your people so good they could leave, but make your business so good they don't want to. So you've been on this journey now. You are now playing the role of coach, which means your team are now handling all the relationships, and therefore ultimately they're responsible for delivering the bottom line for you. So how has that bottom line changed for all the the revenue and everything changed from when you started and through these various phases? Did you have to go backwards to go forwards in terms of profitability, or has it been linear? It's never linear, I know that, but how has it been, and where did it start and where is it now, and where does it go from here?
Yeah, interesting question. So when I bought the practice, it was fairly small, doing I think it's about 150k turnover. So it's a very small, hardly anything in terms of net profit. And so the journey, I think when I joined Mark, we were doing probably about 300-400k turnover, but again, it was hard work at the time. We had high staff turnover. I was still very much involved. Margins weren't very high. We were still doing timesheets, still billing by the hour, had debtors, all that kind of stuff. So when I started changing the business model through changing my pricing in 2014, from 2014 to 2018, we had the biggest amount of growth, where we kind of tripled. We got to nearly £1 million worth of revenue with 7 people and 50% net profit margins in 2018.
Yeah.
But that involved still a fair chunk of tax advisory work. So probably about 30% of our revenue came from one-off projects because I'd got good at pricing them. And I was still very much involved. And then 2019 comes along and I start to coach and mentor other accountants. And at that point, I had to make a decision because I was going out And I found that actually, I was, so maybe just a quick recap in terms of how I got into coaching and mentoring other accountants, was that I shared my successes with my mentor, Mark, in 2018.
Yeah.
And then he invited me to come and do a session to his audience on the practical successes that I was having, because he wasn't in practice. He left his practice late 90s. So he was just doing the teaching. He wasn't actually in
full-time
practice.
coach, yeah.
So I did that, and that went really well with the audience. And then he invited me. So look, this is great. He was just teaching pricing, and we had an agreement where he would pay me every month to come and mentor his mentees on other aspects of running a practice in terms of the marketing side and the people side and the process side and how I'm applying the pricing as well. So he started paying me monthly, and he said, "Oh, you can build up your own audience on the side. Don't worry." So I started to do that, and kind of got into the whole internet marketing type world, and thought quite enjoyed the kind of teaching, distilling information and sharing my own journey and successes with the audience, and showing people how I done it and implemented it, and people are getting results from that. And within a year or so, my own audience had then really built up quite fast. And in the pandemic, it snowballed, and it got to a point where me and Mark had a conversation, and he's like, "Look, we're kind of becoming competing businesses here." So we had an amicable conversation and parted ways.
Right.
And then my full focus was then on the coaching side, which I just enjoyed. I enjoyed more. I was quite, I got into the internet marketing world, and again went deep into that in terms of learning about internet marketing and copywriting and building a personal brand and doing videos and social media and all that kind of stuff. And I had to make a decision then in terms of, right, okay, so I've got this practice, which is still heavily reliant on me because I'm doing the tax advisory projects, but now I want to pursue more the coaching mentoring side, which is really kicking off. So I took a view to say, right, okay, well, how can I completely start to extract myself from the practice, which meant having a difficult, making a difficult decision in terms of foregoing potentially some revenue or a lot of revenue, because if I'm the one that's driving these projects, earning that cream of profitability, which we can earn some big fees, and 30%, 300k of our revenue is coming.
Massively subsidizes your margin as well.
Exactly, and that's pretty much all pure profit, because it doesn't take much to deliver the projects. But I had to take a view. So our revenue actually plateaued whilst I tried to find a way of being able to sustain the practice at that level and to grow it. It probably dipped slightly in those couple of years whilst I'm focusing more on the coaching and mentoring, because I was doing zero sales and marketing for the accounting firm, because all my sales and marketing was for the accounting audience that I wanted to build up. And then as I'm kind of teaching marketing to the accountant's audience in 2021, I thought, right, okay, why don't I, rather than just teach it again, because we had developed a good niche into property, and that was our one niche, is to actually do this in real time. So everything I'm teaching, do in real time, and set up a brand new accounting firm with a new name, new audience, and everything that I do, I share in real time with my accountant's audience. So that's when Capture Accounting was born. We had one.
So what year was that? 21?
21, yeah. So it was quite late. So I'd run the power positioning course for accountants in 2020, I think, but that was showing case study of my property niche. And 2021 is right, I'll actually do it with you. So it was born in, I think, February 2021. And that was the catalyst really to replace the advisory income with something that was more sustainable, that didn't require my input to build and grow. And to this day that continues. So Capture Accounting is a specialist brand for content creators and influencers. So I saw that as a potentially lucrative and growing niche. We had one client in that sector. We'd worked with him for about 18 months, a chap called Mike Thurston. But so we'd understood kind of what it requires to do. And there's a lot of nuances with working with people in that sector in terms of the income they get in, and a lot of generalist accountants aren't aware of how to deal with things like EU VAT and withholding tax and how to account for everything. So I thought that was an area that we could pursue, and we have, and that kind of kicked off pretty quickly. And now that has replaced the income. So it took a couple of years to get back up to where we were in 2018, but now that continues to basically grow without me, which was the ultimate aim.
I think that's an important point to bring out, isn't it? I think people want to make the change, but then aren't aware of potentially that sacrifice that's required in terms of plateauing, stagnation, even sometimes going backwards if you need to. I remember speaking to somebody who grew his firm from 1 to 10 million, I think now he's at, through acquisition as well. But from, I think he said 3 to 5 million, there was no change in the bottom line because he was investing in the team to be able to carry on growing without him, which it sounds like kind of what you went through in those years as well. So that means you've gone into your niche now of content creation. So that's one of your P's, right? Promotion is in there. You've got your people, you've got your processes, and you've got your pricing done. So what's the next part for you then? I guess in the AMA thing, right? Ask me anything. I'm always intrigued. Well, what do you do with your day then, right? So you say you run it on less than 5 hours a week. Obviously, you've got the coaching business, but then what do your 5 hours look like, or however many hours you spend on the practice? Because that's probably quite an interesting thing for people to know. Like, where do you focus time that allows you to run a business without actually being involved in it?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the 5 hours a week I have to kind of break it down really granular in terms of what a week would look like. So in terms of most of my time is spent because I enjoy the coaching and mentoring side, and because I just, I don't like sit. They say that, the goal is that you want the old model of, working until you're 60 and then retire and then do nothing. I think that's, I think Tim Ferriss talked about this in the 4-hour work week, where why wait until you're 60, 65 to be able to enjoy life when you're probably really grumpy, your knees don't work, you're really fed up with anything to actually enjoy life. Yeah. Why can't you construct your life as you go along to enjoy and work at the same time? And I guess I've come to the realization that I enjoy working in the sense that, I found my passion in terms of, the coaching that I do. I found that, and doing things like the working genius model, I've realized that actually one of my gifts is to kind of, discern information. I can distill lots of information and then put it into something of, something tangible and coherent to help other people along the journey. That's my gift. Yeah. Whereas, my gift is not kind of working with detail and doing tax returns and accounts and that sort of thing. So if I found my zone of genius, as it were, and that's the goal for everyone, really, and the goal that, even with my team, you'd want to put people in areas where they thrive, because if you put people in areas where they get frustrated with what they're doing because it's not in line with their natural strengths, then they're only going to get burnt out, they're going to be demotivated. So I've kind of found my area in terms of the coaching and mentoring side and the marketing and that sort of thing. So going back to the question, 5 hours a week. So the Monday afternoon, 1 p.m, we have a team meeting. So I'm on that. I'd go to those.
Why 1 p.m? Most people would go, right, 9 o'clock in the morning. Why don't you do it then?
Right. So every morning of mine is free. Yep. I have 0 calls, 0 meetings. And that's because I learned a few years ago about time blocking and how to be more productive. And because I was in that game of building a personal brand, I needed to have chunks of time that were focused on creating content. So I made a conscious decision to say, right, okay, well, I have most energy in the morning. Yep. So my mornings are going to be reserved for me. And so I make sure that I don't have any calls in the diary before 1 p.m. In the mornings, I drop the kids off, I go to the gym, get my workout done, and then I'll sit in a coffee shop and focus on my content, I spent about a year and a bit writing my book, so a lot of 2022, 23 was taking up with my book, but before that, it was prepping for sessions or, writing blog content or preparing for my video content, whatever content that I was creating, it was the mornings that I would do that, and then 1 p.m. onwards would be my my coaching calls or any check-ins with my team or dealing with emails or, having my mentoring sessions. So that's why mornings are out. 1 p.m. is the team meeting time. So that's my 1 hour. And then I guess the other few hours would just be dotted around the week. Sometimes even less than 5 hours. So my focus is I still take care of the marketing. So in terms of what our marketing looks like is, because I wanted something that would run on autopilot, a marketing system that would run on autopilot, and that didn't rely on social media either, because I wear 2 hats. I have one hat, which is for my coaching business, where my audience is accountants, and the other hat is for my accounting firm. But on social media, if I tried to do content for both accountants and business owners, people get confused as to who's this guy all about, what does he actually do? And in marketing, they say when you confuse, you lose.
Yep.
So I made a conscious effort to say, right, everything I do on social media will be for my personal brand to build the accountant's audience. I have to find another way. So the other way I found was to basically build up content on the internet in terms of blogs, YouTube videos, that sort of thing, do SEO to drive traffic from people who are looking for solutions on Google to us. And that's what we've kind of built up over time, and that's now working well for us. So I would have maybe, I spend maybe an hour or so a week potentially on just tweaking that, maybe having a conversation with our SEO specialists, maybe even creating some content like podcast style like this with one of my colleagues talking about relevant issues facing content creators.
Yep.
But maybe that'll be 1 or 2 hours a week, and maybe an hour checking with the team in terms of, like yesterday I had a coaching session with one of my team members, helping him on his sales calls. So that's where the 5 hours are, and the rest of the time. So yeah, I'm not bumming around on anything in terms of the rest of the time, but it is spent on the coaching and mentoring side. I'm working on marketing for the personal brand, which is where most of my time goes.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I think that so in a way, although you're not working in the business, you kind of still are with doing the marketing part, but it's working on the part that you are best at, where you can add the most value, right? So what about where people, so you find that interesting and that's where your natural ability is. What about those accountants whose natural ability and they're in their flow actually doing the accounts? What about them? Because you can see they may hear these messages and think, well, I shouldn't be doing this. But actually, if that's what they like and they're uncomfortable going and doing sales, they're uncomfortable going and doing business development, which, by the way, I like, because you can tell I like yapping away. So what would you say to those people that actually enjoy that but feel that they shouldn't be doing it because they've been told they shouldn't be doing it and they should be working on the business, or even I heard recently above the business, whatever the hell that means? What would you say to them?
Well, I guess it's up to you. It's not up to me to tell them what to do. If they enjoy doing the work, then there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what makes them happy and that what gets them out of bed, and they've got, as long as it's not holding them back from doing something else. If they're doing all the work, but then moaning about the fact that I don't have enough time to do this, or I don't have the income to do this, or I can't find any time to, go on holiday or to attend my kids' sports days or things like that, when it's impeding upon your family life and what you want to do, then there's a problem.
You have to pick what's important.
Yeah, you then got to fix that problem. And generally, it's much easier to get people in to do technical work than it is to come and grow your business.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to decide, what are your priorities in life, and then build a business that is in line with giving you the life that you want ultimately. And if doing the technical work is your forte and you like doing that, then fine. I mean, there's lots of people that enjoy that side of things, but also knowing how to maximize your share of value that you're creating. So I know a couple of people that I've helped and coached in setting up their own tax consultancy businesses, where they're great. They're great tax consultants. They've written books and things like that. But they weren't getting paid a fair share of what they were creating. So they're creating lots of value for clients, but charging by the hour. So not being paid what they deserve to be paid, and actually just changing their business model around in terms of how they price has made a massive impact in terms of the value they're able to add, and still be able to do the stuff they enjoy in terms of actually delivering upon whatever implementation of tax strategy they need to get the desired result for the client. So you can still be doing the work and be really technical, but at the same time create that business that gives you the lifestyle, the income that you want.
So I suppose they need to do the work that still lights you up, but actually everybody still needs to become a little bit more business smart about how to maximize what they're getting, because nobody else is going to, you may be able to hire somebody to do some sales, but nobody's going to really be driving the business growth unless you want it done, isn't it? So what is it that made you decide to step back from, because you don't do the property niche so much now, right? You mainly push the capture accounting. What made you decide to do that?
So again, that was mainly down to the fact that I was the one driving it, and because a lot of it was on the property side, the value was in the not just doing the accounts for small buy-to-let landlords, the value was in the tax advisory projects. And because I was only CTA in the firm, and actually none of my team are qualified accountants, so in my team I've got that they're a great team. They're fantastic. They can do client relations. They can do all the work, but they're not qualified as such. So although I've got a senior tax manager who does all the tax returns and can do some of the tax advisory stuff, he's not a CTA, so he still wouldn't be completely comfortable in proposing the solution and delivering upon it. And of course, you've got PI issues and stuff like that, so I would still have to oversee the tax advisory projects. And because a lot of the property stuff that we were getting involved the tax advisory side, which I had to be involved in, and I didn't really have any CTAs in-house or even ACAs or ACCAs qualified in-house, I had to make a conscious step to forego that potential income and advisory projects and the profits that would come from that, to kind of just manage risk and manage myself out of the practice. Because there was other things that I wanted to pursue, and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Accounting allowed me to do that, because that is pretty much bog standard kind of compliance work that we do, looking after everything A to Z, which my team can handle. I don't need to get involved. So I found that was a much more easier way and lucrative way of still being able to supplement or get the same level of profit from the practice, but not have to spend the time that I would have had by doing the tax advisory work.
And so you've been on quite a bit of a journey there then, from 2008 when you took over the practice to here, and you've picked up coaching along the way as well, and you started doing coaching for other people. Is there anything you would do differently in that time that may have got bigger results, quicker results, different results, and what would that be?
Yeah, I'd have got coaching a lot sooner. I'd have invested in myself a lot sooner. I'd have started reading a lot sooner than I actually did. So because everything that I've done has come from breakthroughs that I've had from learning from other people, from books. And there's a quote that I like to use. I'm not sure who to attribute it to, but I mentioned in my book, there is no such thing as a unique message. Only unique messengers, right? So I now go out and I'm, a unique messenger for somebody maybe that wants to kind of go in that path of growing their accounting firm. But in the same way, it's about, all I wish I'd done is maybe just start that journey a lot sooner. And now I swear by it. So now I'm always looking for a way, because I'm still, hungry and ambitious, and I want to, grow and scale the consulting, my coaching and mentoring business, and also at the same time, grow 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Accounting. So I'm constantly investing in myself. So when you ask me what my day looks like, so in the morning when I'm at the gym, I'm listening to a podcast, or when I'm commuting, I've got a YouTube video going. I pay for YouTube Premium. It's definitely worth it. I recommend everyone gets it.
Yeah.
I've given it to my son as well to say, look, go and watch these, follow these channels. You can learn a hell of a lot. It's a university in itself in terms of what you can learn from YouTube these days. And the world has changed. And my view of the educational system currently, we could have another podcast on that, I think, but let's not get into that. My wife and I have a constant, discussions around that, and we have differing viewpoints. But anyone can achieve anything, and that is my best advice is to invest in yourself. I mean, I'm in a position where, if wherever I'm looking to get to, I will look at, right, well, who is it that I can learn from to be able to shortcut my learning? So just to give you a flavor, I mean, recently I paid 12 grand in the last month to join a coaching program to learn how to do YouTube ads, right? And this is not even a one-to-one coaching program. It's a group coaching program. It's access to online resources. But I know that the person that's doing this is, far ahead of the game than me. And they've spent 10 years in the online world being able to get people onto webinars through YouTube ads and funnel them down into their coaching business. So I know spending that money and learning from someone who's already got the scars and figured out a way of doing things is going to be much faster and save me a lot of time, money and heartache in trying to figure out myself. So it's well worth making that investment to basically shortcut my learning. So anywhere I have a constraint, a problem that I'm coming up against that I can't resolve, I will look for someone somewhere that can help me, because there will always be somebody somewhere a few steps ahead of the ladder than you that can give you that unlock. So it's definitely and whenever I invest in myself in terms of coaching and mentoring, it's never a waste. Even if you don't get the results, you grow as a person along the way, because whenever you invest in yourself, you're kind of accountant. You actually do the work. You know, and they always say, you know, you can try and learn things for free, but you only truly take action when you've got skin in the game. And when you're paying money, you're more likely to take action. So sometimes I just pay the money to force myself to take the action.
And sometimes there's got to be enough money that actually it forces you to take it as well, right? The £10 a month one, you're not going to really bother. Whereas, I get what you mean. And that's, I think you got two things you can invest, is either your time or your money. And one of them you can get more of, and the other one you can't. So sometimes it's better to just spend the money and shortcut the learning experience.
100%.
Awesome. I think I'm out of questions, but I think that's probably a good place to end. But thank you for joining me on my podcast today, Reza. Are there any final pearls of wisdom?
I think we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot of ground in terms of the journey that I had, the advice that I give of investing, and that's how I have managed to get to where I am today. Maybe as a recap in terms of where I started. The stuff that I started implementing that got the biggest results, and we talked about this when we had our podcast as well. It was that pricing is the most powerful lever in the profit equation. So if nothing else, if you're finding that you're in practice, you're not making the money that you want, you are overworked, you're underpaid, you are likely not pricing correctly. So start there and then focus on the other areas. But pricing will give you that big unlock in the shortest amount of time. That's certainly when I started. That's where you started. And it just enables you to have that launch pad and that breathing room to be able to do everything else in your practice to kind of build that business that makes you proud ultimately. But yeah, it's a fantastic, we're so fortunate to have fallen into this game. I know both of us, we can never intended to be accountants, but actually run an accounting firm is actually one of the best business models out there. And although it doesn't seem very sexy, it's, nowadays, subscription businesses are all the craze. If you look at the multiples on subscription businesses, they're enormous. They're crazy, SaaS businesses, etc., with recurring income. Accountants were the original subscription model. We've had clients that stay with us for years, that come, that will pay us for year on year. We've had clients who go back 42 years. I mean, the lifetime value on that is incredible, because we're quite fortunate with the compliance model that clients have to do tax returns and have to do accounts, and therefore they need an accountant, that we don't have to try very hard to keep business and to get recurring business, because once they're in, they're going to stay with you unless you make a complete pig's ear of it. So, it's a fantastic business model. So if you get it right, it really can, give you whatever life that you want to create for yourself, the lifestyle you want, and be able to then, make a nice exit at the end of it, because it's a fantastic business model, which, a lot more, PE-backed companies are looking at and acquiring. So if you can create that business model that gives you that recurring income, gives the lifestyle you want, and then have a big nest egg at the end of it when you sell it, it's just a fantastic business to be in.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tej, for being interviewer today.
We'll do it again.